F1 on ITV, sponsored by Shell V-Power.
It's been Michael Schumacher with all the championship momentum until now. In qualifying, he struggled in the rain showers of Shanghai. So too did Fernando Alonso. But it's the Spaniard on pole and Schumacher back in sixth. Renault thank the rain gods and their tyres. Now, can they make it stick in the Grand Prix of China? And the Shanghai International Circuit is wet once again as we get set for the first of three races that will decide this fantastic climax to the Formula One season. Alonso against Schumacher, Renault against Ferrari. Yes, a tumultuous climax to the season starts right here. Michael Schumacher trying to gain his 8th world title in the last three races of his career. He trimmed Fernando Alonso's world championship lead down from a massive 25 points to just 2. But in qualifying yesterday, Mark Blundell, all the brakes went the way of Renault and Alonso.
They did indeed, but I think that was mainly down to the fact that they've got the Michelin tyre. It definitely has the best intermediate tyre out there at the moment. Bridgestone are in trouble. Michael Schumacher knows that, Ferrari know that, but he still managed to get inside the top 10 in 6th place, and I think that is a remarkable achievement.
And it looks pretty wet out there once again. Is this significant advantage going to continue through the race?
I think it will do, Steve. I mean, with the conditions as they are, it's going to play into the hands of all the Michelin runners. It's to the detriment of Ferrari and all the Bridgestone runners, and that's going to be a massive issue. They've really got to go just to collect points, try and finish, and make something out of this weekend.
Well, let's remind you of exactly how the championship tables stand as we enter these last three races of the season. China first of all, then Japan and Brazil. Fernando Alonso with just a 2-point lead after that commanding 25-point lead he had when he won his last Grand Prix in Montreal way back at the end of June. It's certainly been Ferrari's second half of the season, and they've got past Renault in a very exciting battle for the Constructors' title. But today an all-Renault front row, and Felipe Massa is starting right at the back in the second of the Ferraris. Here's James Allen with a full report on yesterday's qualifying.
Well, these team offices set on a lake out the back of the Formula One paddock are an oasis of serenity. But there was nothing serene about yesterday's qualifying session. It absolutely tipped it down with rain, and if you weren't on the Michelin tyres, you were nowhere. The first sign of problems was the two Toyotas eliminated in the first knockout session. We lost both the Williams and Felipe Massa's Ferrari in the second knockout session, but Michael Schumacher heroically managed to squeak himself through by just over 1/10.5 of a second into safety and into the top 10 pole position shootout. David Coulthard was unlucky. A communication mistake with his team meant that he didn't come into the pits at the right time to change tyres, and so he missed out on the top 10, although that Red Bull was definitely quick enough to get him well up there. The two Renaults, well, they were comfortable in all three qualifying sessions. It was a 1-2 lockout with Alonso 0.6 of a second faster than teammate Fisichella on pole position. The two Hondas set identical lap times to within 1,000th of a second. When was the last time we saw that? But because Rubens Barrichello set it first, he starts third on the grid with Jenson Button fourth. Kimi Raikkonen is fifth for McLaren, and in 6th place is Michael Schumacher. He managed to get his Ferrari on the Bridgestone tyres up into 6th place with an absolutely amazing lap. If you look at the gap between himself and the nearest Bridgestone runner, you realise what an extraordinary lap it was from Michael Schumacher. He will be praying that this was the last rain we're going to see for the weekend. But Renault are saying, wet or dry, they're very confident about this Grand Prix.
We have been doing a good job the last three races with unlucky and retirements that the gap in the championship disappeared. But we're still competitive. We prove again today, and I think we have a fantastic tyre in wet and a very good tyre in dry. So tomorrow when we wake up, it doesn't matter which weather. So this is an advantage.
Impressive performance today in a wet condition. I think we are at least more than half a second quicker than everyone else, and the car balance was good. The tires are fantastic, and even the engine specification here is perfect.
It's just fantastic to see how much you can put it, and you're down to the hundreds, and even there we were exactly the same. So, but you know, a bit of luck on my side. I've done it first, so I gotta take. You know, in a way, it's good for the team to have both cars on the second row and with the same time. So we have no complaints.
Jensen and all on the second row. That's pretty good.
Yeah, you know, we did exactly the same time, which is quite interesting. But yeah, you know, it was an interesting day today with the weather, and you can see that the Michelins are a lot stronger than the Bridgestones. So yeah, it's going to be an interesting day tomorrow. If it's dry, I think it's going to be very competitive. If it's wet, I think it's just a Michelin fight really, so it makes it a bit more interesting for us.
So not a complete disaster for the championship then?
No, not at all. I mean, if we have to leave some points behind, then that's the way it is. But then 2 races to go, where we'll have to see. But I mean, first of all, we have to finish the 56 laps and see what comes out in the end.
So this is the grid in full, and it's the first all-Renault front row since that Canadian Grand Prix 6 races ago. And behind them, those identical times for Barrichello and Button to share row 2 for Honda. And Michael Schumacher on row 3 with Kimi Räikkönen. Schumacher, the only one of the Bridgestone runners in the top 10. A quite heroic performance in qualifying. Good performance from Kubica, and Robert Dornbos replacing Christian Klien in the Red Bull, out qualifying his rather unfortunate teammate David Coulthard, who lines up in 12th. The 2 Williams only just making the second qualifying session, but the Toyotas of Schumacher and Trulli, they went out in Q1. And Felipe Massa qualifying 13th, but then taking a 10-place grid penalty for the engine change, so he's on the back row but 1. And in terms of the Constructors' Championship, Mark, that's a big blow for Ferrari.
It is a big blow. Having Massa that far back obviously is going to cost them valuable points, and also because of the weather conditions, they know that they're going to be weak and they're not going to be able to score the amount of points they would definitely like to score now. But you know, this is a big thing for Renault. They've been pushing hard. The Constructors is very tight as what the Drivers is, as we know, and it's important for Renault to try and pull it off. 2 cars up in the front row, they've got a great chance of doing that.
Has to be said that what Michael Schumacher achieved in qualifying yesterday was quite extraordinary. He needs the same kind of performance to get anything out of this race.
Oh, he does. And if anybody can do it, Michael Schumacher can do it, and he can do it in these kind of conditions. He normally excels, but he hasn't got the tyre. That's the big problem he's got there. He hasn't got the intermediate tyre. Michelin is so strong there, and they've got all those cars around in that, you know, the other 9 in that top 10, they're running with the same compound and same tyre itself. It's going to be a tough call for him. But, you know, as I say, if anyone can do it, Michael Schumacher is the man.
OK, so what exactly are conditions like out there in Shanghai? Let's go live to Louise.
Well, it was absolutely pouring with rain here about an hour ago. It has stopped raining now, but what's it going to do during the race? Gilles, what's your forecast for the race?
Well, the forecast is the weather will remain uncertain, and we might get some rain and it might just dry out. So it's very uncertain at the moment.
As it stands at the moment, this is really going to play into the hands of the Michelin runners, is that right?
Yeah, for sure. Michelin had a clear advantage yesterday, and these conditions are perfect for all Michelin runners, and hopefully perfect for us too.
Well, you're well placed to do something, and this kind of conditions do help teams to spring surprises. What chance of a repeat like we had in Hungary, Jensen winning the race?
I don't know. I mean, clearly with this type of weather and this type of race, I mean, anything can happen. And if we make good decisions, we certainly know we have good pace, and we have great drivers. So I think anything can happen.
Thanks, Gilles.
Thank you.
Honda with their hopes, Ferrari with their problems, and Ferrari's charge through the second half of the season did seem irresistible until this weekend. They seemed set to reclaim the drivers' and constructors' titles despite the impending retirement of Michael Schumacher and the uncertainty surrounding the future of their technical director Ross Brawn. And of course, despite the setbacks of yesterday and the conditions we've got today, it's all still within their grasp. and Ted Kravitz looks at how they're getting set for this climax to the season.
After 247 events over 16 seasons with 90 wins, each turn of the wheel is one closer to Michael Schumacher stepping out of the car for good. But does he feel that he has the last 3 races of his career to prove he's the best?
I've done that for the last 16 years to show how good my abilities had been, and I've always tried to maximize them. Sometimes you achieve, sometimes you fail, but there's nothing else to do different.
Michael still feels he's made the right decision and has already started mentally saying goodbye to F1's racetracks.
It's a weird feeling, like at the end of the race in Monza, for example. That's the only moment you think about that. But beforehand, you're so focused on your event that it only allows you for a moment to have those thoughts after the event.
The Schumacher fan's loss is his family's gain. What's been the reaction back at his house in Switzerland?
Business as usual at home, honestly. The kids, they don't care about that. I mean, they want to have Daddy the way Daddy has always been, and that's has been the case.
This is Michael's last chance to lay claim to his 8th World Championship. His precocious opponent Fernando Alonso couldn't care less, and Renault has the upper hand after qualifying. Michael hasn't got his teammate to help him out and has shown that he's prone to the odd mistake around this circuit. His best result in China is 12th, so the charge for the championship might just have to wait until next week in Japan.
This has never been the best track for you, I think it's pretty fair to say. Why is that?
Ask the track.
Do you like the place? Is there a reason why you haven't had the success you...
I have no reason not to like the place, but the car handling is very important, and I don't think we have been greatly in advantage, especially last year. We had a terrible situation with our package, which should not be the case this year.
In the dry, at least, Ferrari are in the hunt. And given that at one stage this year they were 25 points down on Renault, it's been an impressive fight back.
I think we had a poor start to the season, and we didn't score as many points as we should have done in the first quarter of the season. But I always felt we had a very good car, a very good package. We just needed to put all the bits together, and it's tiny details that make the difference. And they started very strongly, so for us it was a catch-up all the time. I think we're pretty evenly balanced now, so I think it's a very tight finish to a championship. I think we're now starting to perform as we should have done, and we underperformed at the beginning of the season.
And what about Michael? Do you get the feeling that Michael wants this championship more than any of the other previous 7?
It really is hard to compare it, but he's such a competitive person that whether he wants it more than others, I can't judge, but he does very much want this championship, and I think he wants to finish his career with this championship, and he's fighting as hard and is as determined as I can recall. So, and I think the issue of his retirement being resolved now has cleared that matter away, and he can focus completely on the racing, and maybe it has been a little bit of a distraction mid-season. You never know how much, even in the subconscious. So that's all out of the way now, and I think we're going to see a pretty impressive Michael Schumacher for the rest of the year.
In many ways, it really isn't the end of an era at Ferrari with Michael going, and still suggestions that you're thinking of following him out the door. Is that true? Well,
I think we'll wait till the end of the season before my plans are clear. I mean, I love Ferrari. I think it's a fantastic team, and I'm certainly not thinking of going anywhere else. So I know there's been speculation, but that's not correct. So, but my plans and the plans of the team will be clear at the end of the season.
Thanks, Ross.
But in Shanghai, Fernando Alonso, the world champion, has identified himself once again as the man to be beaten. He won here last year, and this was how he was coping with this highly technical Shanghai circuit yesterday, described by Martin Brundle.
The Shanghai International Circuit for the Chinese Grand Prix, 3 1/3 miles, 5.5 kilometres, around 93 seconds in the dry, but over 104 seconds in wet conditions. Fernando Alonso dominated qualifying, fastest in all 3 sessions. Let's take a look at why he's so good around here. Heading down towards turn 1, 180 miles an hour, and then he'll have to be so cautious Turns 1 and 2 effectively form a circle. He's having to slow down so much to get the front of the car into the apex. It's almost as if he's going in the pits this lap, but he's not. He's on a hot one. He goes around the outside of turn 3 where there'll be more grip. We'll see plenty of that going on during this lap. The kink of the right-hander will be easy. There's enough downforce even in these conditions. Now he has to slow the car down again around the outside, staying off the normal racing rubbered up line so that he gets better grip on the fresher tarmac around the outside. It works in the rain. Turn 6 and 7, very cautious and smooth with the throttle pedal. 8 follows immediately through the exit of this turn 7, and he has to get ready for it. 9's there too, so it's one long left-hander as he heads onto a short straight up towards turn 10. Probably still 160 miles an hour when he gets there, so it'll be difficult to slow down, braking around 100 metres. Notice he stays off the curbs. It just tends to push the front of the car wide. Again, as far to the outside as he can get, squeezing on the power. Now the downforce starts to bite and pushes the car into the racetrack. The 1.3 kilometre back straight. Notice how poor the visibility is in front of him, and there isn't even a car there. The mist just hangs in the air as he approaches the braking zone for turn 13 hairpin. At a 200 metres, he feels the need to start slowing down, and that's why he just hangs on to the outside of the hairpin, following the tracks as much as he can of other cars where there's less water. Good speed through this final corner, and look, there is the magnificent grandstand and pit area. Over the line he goes, Alonso dominant in the rain.
Yes, that's the kind of form that saw Fernando Alonso dominate the first half of this season. Definitely been a season of two halves, a Renault half and a Ferrari half. Let's remind you once again of how it's all taken shape.
And the 2006 Formula One World Championship begins now.
Alonso with a better run out of turn 4, and he is going to steal that position. It's going to be very, very close. And surely Michael's got the momentum. No, Alonso's done it.
Hello, you. How was the rest? You made it through. But
he is the winner of the Malaysian Grand Prix, Giancarlo Fisichella. The world champion finishes in second place. Oh, Michael Schumacher has dropped it on the final corner and hit the wall.
Nobody's there.
Alonso's going to stick it up the inside, but Michael didn't give him any space at all.
So Michael Schumacher has done it. He has won the San Marino Grand Prix to put to an end a very, very long losing streak. For the second race in a row, Ferrari have turned Renault over. Schumacher then, looking for 2 victories in a row. He makes it here at the Nürburgring. Fernando Alonso wins the Spanish Grand Prix. Fernando Alonso wins in Monte Carlo. Here at Silverstone, Fernando Alonso has showed us his class. Fernando Alonso wins. He has his 4th straight win from pole position. Michael Schumacher wins. He is the King of America today. And for the second race in a row, Michael Schumacher wins. Michael Schumacher then coming through to collect the checkered flag. It's yet another Ferrari 1-2. Fernando Alonso is off. The World Championship leader has stopped. And Schumacher's in trouble. It looks like both of the World Championship contenders are going to be out of this race. Here's Schumacher right up the back of Alonso, across the line. No! Alonso picks up second. Michael Schumacher picks up third. It's an extremely angry Fernando Alonso sitting in that cockpit. And what a place for it to happen. Michael Schumacher wins the Italian Grand Prix. And the championship now is down to just 2 points in Alonso's favour.
And after Italy, there was a lot of anger within Renault, a lot of anger within Fernando Alonso as well. He's got to keep that under control today. It's a day for a measured approach.
Definitely, but I think he can do that, no problem. He's shown that time and time again. But that anger's coming out because there's frustrations with things going against Renault, things going against Alonso sitting in that car where he gets pushed back a few spots on the grid. Everything he's trying to do to achieve another world title is being made very difficult for him. So you can see that coming out. But, you know, Alonso's got a great deal of strength, and he's got a great deal of strength in his mental attitude, and I think that's showing.
How did Renault lose their supremacy at the halfway point of the season?
I don't think they lost it, Steve. I think actually Ferrari just gained momentum and actually came on song as well. And they've got that mid-season push there where they, won races on the trot. I think what happened, Renault slightly got a little bit on their back foot with a lot of things from outside, going on. And it just maybe took a little edge off of them. And Alonso just not finishing at Budapest hurt them slightly. But the problem is as well that, Renault, even when they do have problems, they're still normally kicking great amount of points, and that's where the consistency lies, and that's why I think they've just still got this situation now where they're heading a championship in both driver and constructors.
Yes, they got the chance to put it all back on track today because, of course, it's an all-Renault front row, Giancarlo Fisichella alongside Alonso, and we can hear from Fisi now. He's talking with Ted Kravitz.
Well, Giancarlo, it's been raining off and on all morning. What's been the last-minute instructions in the engineers' room?
Well, apparently it's going to be a wet race for the start, which is not bad for us considering the pace we had yesterday. So we are quite confident for the race in a wet condition. But even in dry condition, we got a good pace, and it's going to be important to get at the end of the race and score the best result.
Do you think Michael's going to be a factor at any point? Maybe at the start?
Yeah, probably yes. Ferrari and Michael are still very, very good fighters, and they got good possibility to do well anyway. Even if yesterday the pace wasn't so good as our pace.
Thanks. Have a good race.
Well, as we were looking back over the season, the highlight certainly for Jenson Button was that breakthrough win in Hungary in similar conditions to those that we have in China. And he's been talking with Louise.
Jenson, visually this is a very different paddock to the European races. We've got the offices here instead of the motorhomes, big pond in the middle of it as well. But what about the atmosphere? Do you find that different?
I think it is a little bit because you're a bit further away from each other when you're in your big, whatever they are, floating homes.
Palaces.
Yeah, sort of. It's a little bit different, the atmosphere, and everything's just so spread out. To walk over to the garage is like it's a bit of training going over there. You got to run across. So yeah, it is different, and especially with the weather because it's not great weather at the moment, and everything's a bit sort of down, I suppose.
It's our third time we've been here. Do you feel like the Chinese are getting a bit of a handle of Formula One and how it all works now?
Yeah, it's quite amazing. We came here in 2004, and nobody really knew about Formula One. And now, it's everywhere, and there are so many fans of Formula One in the city, and there are a lot of people here also. It's amazing how they've learned so much about Formula One in 2 years.
What kind of response do you get from the people on the streets?
They're very friendly. They're fanatical about Formula One, really. Outside the hotel, there are about 100 fans cheering you when you're driving in the car and when you leave, and it's good to see. It's good that it's becoming a big sport in China.
They love Schumacher here. He also came out top in the recent FIA fan survey. Did you read that?
Yeah. Shall I tell you why that probably is? It's probably because 100,000 people, randoms, you walk up to someone in the street and say, Formula One, who's your favourite driver? Most people will probably say Michael Schumacher because they don't know so many other drivers. So that's why I think he's top.
So these surveys are absolutely random. So the fact that you came third in that popularity stake is irrelevant.
It is. And it doesn't matter anyway, does it? It's nice to be popular, but it doesn't make us go any quicker.
Well, you didn't need much to make you go quicker today. It was a good day for the team, wasn't it?
It was a good day. All weekend so far we've been competitive, and in the dry and in the wet, especially in the wet. So it was good to get both cars up there in qualifying, and I think I'm in a pretty good position for tomorrow.
What kind of conditions do you want for the race?
Wet's good for us. If it's dry, we're still going to have a good race because we're in a good position, and we have very good strategy. So if it's dry, we're going to be good, but we're going to have to contend with Michael coming through. But if it's wet, you know, it's going to be us and the Renaults, I think, and maybe Kimi will have a play as well.
Do you think you could get the Renaults in the wet?
No, but I think apart from the Renaults, you know, we can challenge anyone, and it's going to be tough to beat the Renaults. I don't know what lap they're stopping on. We have to wait and see. But they've been quick all day, so they're going to be tough to beat. But there's a podium position up for grabs, which is mine.
We'll have that then.
Yeah, Jenson Button and Honda with the possibility of making it another big day for British motorsport today out in China. And in our coverage yesterday, we were hearing how Britain's talented young driver Lewis Hamilton has possibly moved a little bit closer toward that coveted McLaren F1 drive with a very decent performance at his recent test at Silverstone. And Lewis has been talking a little bit more with James Allen.
Now, we all know what you've done for GP2 racing, but what's a year in GP2 racing done for you? How are you a better driver than you were 12 months ago?
Well, there's been a lot to cram into 1 year. Usually a lot of PK has already done 2 years of GP2, and there is a lot to learn about the tracks, the circuits, as you're following the Formula 1 all the way around to all the European circuits. You're learning what it's like to be on, you know, the Formula 1 scene, be in front and have all of that pressure from the Formula 1 teams watching you.
Obviously, you've been a protege of this McLaren team for many, many years now. It's been an extraordinary relationship, really, development. But you must have become aware, as the season went on, that the whole Formula 1 world was standing up and paying attention.
Yeah, the support was just increasing and increasing. The media, it's like a wave, and they've just got on that wave and just rode the wave all the way to the end of the season. And it's really just a positive buzz that you can continue and take it right until the end. And it's, you know, it's a big mental game, the racing business. It's, you know, if you're not on top of your game, if you're not focused, if you're not strong in the mind, you won't succeed. And luckily this year, everything was in the right place, and I was able to focus and get on with the job.
So you've won the championship, and you're now knocking on the door of Formula 1. Everybody knows who you are. What's the best path forward for Lewis Hamilton from here?
Well, you know, it's been a long, long journey. I think I've been racing for, I think it's 13 years now. Considering I'm only 21, that's quite a long career already, you know, already 2/3 of my life. Formula 1 is where I want to be, and I think I've timed it to perfection. You know, there's a seat available at McLaren. You know, we've had a long relationship, and they've got a world champion in the seat, and you know, I just, fingers crossed, I can get either that seat or a test seat or maybe a race seat somewhere else. But I've done all I can do in any of the lower classes. There's nowhere else for me to go, so I'm banging on the door of Formula 1, and that's where I want to be.
Fernando Alonso, obviously, as the world champion you're referring to, is a class act, as we know well. And with Michael Schumacher retiring, arguably the best driver in Formula 1, you really want to go up against him in the same team?
I think so. I mean, having the strongest teammate is such a big positive, because there's so much to learn from them. And the more experienced they are, the more that you will learn. And he is the toughest driver at the moment in Formula 1, apart from Schumacher. And, you know, it would be an extremely tough challenge, but, you know, I'm looking forward to it. I love a challenge. I love to make it hard for myself, and so I'm looking forward to it.
And for Lewis, it doesn't seem any more to be a question of if it's going to be Formula 1 with McLaren, but when. And some are suggesting it might even be as early as Brazil this season, 2 races' time.
I'd be very surprised if that happens, Steve, because I don't see any reason why they need to do that. You know, they can evaluate him off of testing. They can evaluate him from his performance already in GP2. He knows how to win races. He knows how to win championships. He's a great talent for the future. I'm interested also if they do put him in a race car against Alonso as world champion. That will either make him or break him. But you know, it's a big amount of pressure on a young guy's shoulders.
So much is being talked about Lewis Hamilton, so much is being said about him. There is a lot of other great British young talent out there as well. How is that struggling to find its way into Formula 1?
You know, F1 is a tough route to get, you know, all the way to the top anyway, Steve. You're only talking about 22 odd guys in the world, but we do have a great amount of talent within the UK. We've got guys like Lewis, we've got guys Gary Paffett, Anthony Davidson, a young guy called Mike Conway just won the British F3 Championship. There is a lot of talent there.
Well, Anthony Davidson is currently with Honda, and currently he's standing alongside Ted Kravitz out there in Shanghai.
Yes, absolutely, Steve, he is. And Anthony, how close are you to a race drive next year?
Well, like I said all along, that's been my mission. to get onto the grid one day. I believe things are looking reasonably good for me next year. I just fingers crossed that I can be on the grid. I mean, there are spaces still open, so you know, that's what I want. They know what I want. The whole grid does, so that's my goal.
Okay, well, the car's going out. Ralf Schumacher just joining the track, and Jenson Button just getting ready in the back of the garage. It's going to be tough for him out there, isn't it? But he seems up for it.
I mean, it's going to be tough for everybody. These are really tricky conditions. This is the hardest to guess, basically, for any driver. And the track's going to be drying very quickly if it doesn't rain again, with the cars pounding around. So there's going to be a dry line appearing reasonably soon into the race if it doesn't. So, yeah, it's going to be an exciting one once again.
Okay, well, it's not raining at the moment. Back to you, Steve.
Well, that's good news anyway. One driver who is sorted for 2007 and can look ahead to next season with some optimism is Kimi Räikkönen after the announcement that he's signed for Ferrari. He's seeing out the rest of his contract with McLaren at the moment, though. And he and the rest of the McLaren team broke their journey out to China with a quick stopover in Dubai, where they also met up with Louise.
McLaren headed to the Middle East earlier this week for a whistle-stop tour of Dubai. Kimi Räikkönen was the man in the driving seat for a show some of the locals would love to see repeated.
With the way things going on in Dubai, and we are hosting big events here, and the development, I think we need to have Formula One.
For the moment, though, they'll have to settle for demonstration runs through the streets. There's a growing interest in motorsport in this region, and events like this are helping to introduce a whole new generation of fans to Formula One.
I like the shape of it and the design. It's so nice.
What was the best thing about it?
The speed.
After playing with his McLaren, Kimi was eager to get his hands on an even more high-tech piece of kit.
We'll take off, and then you'll come downwind. Yeah. And I'll give you some airwork to get used to flying the aircraft.
The Airbus A330 is one of 2 flight simulators at Emirates Training School. How'd you find that?
It was good fun. I've never been before, and a lot of things to learn, but it was good.
You seem to take to it quite naturally.
Yeah, I flew for the helicopter simulator. I would say that it's more difficult because you need to use your legs all the time also. So it wasn't too bad, but I guess there's many things that you need to learn before you can really start flying.
As far as the local media was concerned, though, the main talking point of the day was Räikkönen's forthcoming move from McLaren to Ferrari. You've been a long time at McLaren. How do you feel about leaving them behind?
It's sad because in the end there's a lot of good friends and a nice place to work. I always have had good time here. Okay, we have had bad times together, but also very good times. So in one way sad, but sometimes in life you have changes. So we'll see what happens.
Knowing what you do with McLaren, how do you think Fernando is going to fit into the team?
I think so. It's fine. They are good, easy people to work with, so I don't see any problem. I think so. They have had much more harder time with me than anyone else, so I think so it will be fine.
How do you mean?
You can ask from them.
Well, you're not very easy to work with? Or?
No, it's fine, but there's always a bit lazy sometimes.
So Ferrari in for a bit of a shock next year, are they?
I don't know. We'll see what happens. I think so will be okay. It's just interesting to go somewhere else, and everything is new, so in one way it's going to take a little time and get used to it, but I think so it's going to be okay.
But how does it work with the team now that everybody knows that you're going somewhere else? Are you still heavily involved in all of the testing, or do you have to take slightly a back seat?
No, in the last week test I wasn't there, but apart from that everything is normal, and for sure they want to give us everything what they have for me, same than the other driver, because in the end we try to get as many points for the team and try to win the races for the team, so they want to give the maximum, and I'm going to give the maximum, so we're going to finish the season and hopefully have good results.
10 seconds. So as Kimi moves on, the big question is who is going to fill that second seat at McLaren? You tested Lewis Hamilton last week. Has he got any closer?
Oh, I think that's a good step in the right direction, but it's not a decision we have to take yet. Certainly be taken between the last race and the end of the year. I think we know where we're going, but right now we're concentrating on the last 3 Grand Prix. And as Kimi says, he's a bit lazy every now and then. Well, we don't want him to be lazy for the balance. We want to win some races, and that's what we're going to concentrate on.
There has been talk perhaps of Lewis making his debut in Brazil. Could you totally rule that one out?
Well, we committed to Pedro here in Japan because he's the right guy for the job. It's most likely going to unfold that way for the rest of the year, but as we didn't have to take a decision, we didn't, and we'll review things after Japan.
Thanks, Ron.
You're welcome.
Well, Lewis for the Brazilian Grand Prix. Ron Dennis didn't say a definite no to that. So we're all set for Shanghai. It's one of the exciting horizons for the brave new world of Formula One. And in terms of the city, the setting and the circuit, it has all the ingredients to put on quite a show.
While the grand buildings of Shanghai's riverfront are a constant reminder of the country's communist roots, China is a nation in transformation. 70% of the population is still working class, but there's a new middle class getting off their bikes and buying their own cars. This is the most valuable new market for everyone, from car manufacturers to designer labels. The rate of progress is astounding. Over the Huangpu River, they're constructing what will be the world's tallest building to neighbour the Pudong TV Tower. Finding a place amongst the skyscrapers, old Shanghai still pulls in the tourists, but if you venture out of town to the track, you'll be in Shanghai's manufacturing heartland. We've come to one of the towns fueling China's growth. This is Anting, where Volkswagen are making cars destined for export all over the world. Right next door, such as the contrast of life in Shanghai, you've got people living in houses without running water. And 5 miles down the road, there just happens to be a world-class Formula One circuit. That's because in China, these things just get done. Ever since the communist leader Deng Xiaoping declared 15 years ago that to get rich is glorious, the Chinese have been a nation of entrepreneurs. Everyone knows how to make money, and they're very good at it. At the track, binocular vendors can earn up to a month's wage in a single weekend. The powerful new economies of Shanghai and Beijing are competing to attract world-class sporting events. The 2008 Beijing Olympics are the biggest thing in China at the moment, but they also like the way Formula One is an elitist, exciting and aspirational sport. It's only a matter of time before we witness a big Chinese presence in Formula One.
If you'd have been here when I came here to get this place built and get, all the organisation with the government, if you'd have said Formula One, which is what we did, people had no idea what you're talking about. And don't forget, this was big rice fields. When I come here, there wasn't even a road here.
Now not only is there a road, but also an impressive Formula One facility that gives new meaning to the label Made in China.
But what they don't have today is the weather, and even in wet Shanghai, the Chinese love a pageant and a parade, they love a float, and there's been plenty of that ahead of the build-up to this Chinese Grand Prix, the sort of parades and pageants that we'll be seeing a great deal more of in 2 years' time, when the focus will be on Beijing and the 2008 Olympic Games. Formula One is the only show in town today, and we'll have your ITV F1 competition and Martin Brundle on the grid when we return.
F1 on ITV, sponsored by Shell V-Power. F1 on ITV, sponsored by Shell V-Power.
The Shanghai International Circuit, crucially in damp, it might even be wet conditions for the Grand Prix of China, and all the advantages that will give to Alonso, to Renault, to the Michelin runners as well. It's an all-Renault front row. Alonso on pole, Schumacher back in 6th. And as you look at those pictures, Mark Blundell, if conditions change, how might things switch back in favour of Ferrari?
They're going to have to dry out completely, I think, Steve, or go completely wet so they've almost got to the monsoon weather conditions, because that's when Bridgestone can come into their own. When you've got these variable intermediate conditions, it is definitely the area for Michelin, and with the Renault there as well, they're going to be pretty much unbeatable, I'm afraid to say.
OK, we'll let the grid assemble, and then we'll be joining Martin Brundle down there very shortly. And all the information you require on Formula One, stats, records, results, previews, opinions, that can all be found on the ITV F1 website, along with details of the ITV F1 competition as well. And in our last one at the Italian Grand Prix, for correctly identifying Felipe Massa as the winner of the Turkish Grand Prix, David Watson from South Muscombe in Newark won himself a VIP trip to the Ferrari headquarters at Maranello. Now, Ted has details on this week's competition.
This weekend, Philips are giving away 2 tickets to watch the Brazilian Grand Prix from the Williams headquarters near Oxford. You'll join a live Q&A session with Frank Williams from the track at Interlagos, watch coverage of the race over a silver service dinner, and take a tour around the championship-winning cars of the Williams F1 Museum. Plus, you'll get a limited edition Philips Smart Touch XL electric shaver signed by Nico Rosberg. And here is that clean-cut driver with the question.
Hi, I'm Nico. Nice and easy question for you this week. In which city is the Brazilian Grand Prix? A, Sao Paulo, B, Rio de Janeiro, or C, Buenos Aires? Good luck.
Thanks, Nico. So that is, in which city is the Brazilian Grand Prix held? A, Sao Paulo, B, Rio de Janeiro, or C, Buenos Aires? And the number to call 0901 293 2020 or text F1 plus A, B or C to 63337. Entries cost £1 plus the standard network rates, and lines close midnight this coming Thursday.
Good luck with that. We'll give you all the details of the results and the next competition in our build-up to the Japanese Grand Prix next weekend. But this is our final build-up now to events in Shanghai, the Chinese Grand Prix. We can take you down onto that grid and join Louise.
Yes, I'm here with Colin Collins, the team principal of what is now the Spiker team. Colin, in less than 2 years, you've gone from Jordan to Midland to Spiker. Where do you think the new owners are going to succeed that maybe the previous ones didn't?
Well, I think, we had to improve, definitely. So I think that this is a step forward. We are associated with a car manufacturer, even so it's not the biggest car manufacturer in the world, it's the finest. And we'll see where the way will go, but we are very positive that we will have a good future.
You've gained Ferrari engines for 2007, but you've lost Johnny Herbert.
Well, Johnny is a very nice person. He's a friend of mine. Unfortunately, Johnny had a contract with Midland Resource Holding, so this issue has to be solved somehow. So this is the issue, basically.
Thanks, Colin.
Thanks, bye.
Okay, and as we look at scenes down on the grid, Jenson Button was talking with some optimism, Mark, about the potential for Honda in the forthcoming race and the possibility, he was saying, of a podium finish, maybe even better than that. What can we expect from Jenson today?
They definitely have potential for a podium because, again, they've got the Michelin, they've got the variable conditions. Jenson, as we know, we've seen it already this year, can drive in the wet conditions. But Rubens as well, don't discount Rubens. He's always been good in wet conditions. And, the pair of them are sitting there very comfortably and very confident.
And down the years, we've always assumed and we've always said that Michael Schumacher, of course, is the great master of wet conditions. But what about Schumacher's decision-making in the wet, especially when the pressure is on, as it is at this stage of the season?
Normally Schumacher is excellent in the wet conditions, but at the end of the day, they're only as good as the level of grip that they're getting back. And the Bridgestone is weak for these kind of conditions. He's going to have a tough task today, I can assure you.
Okay, that's the scene. It's rather overcast, it's rather damp, but down there and all set to hijack whatever interviews he can on the Shanghai grid is Martin Brundle. Martin.
I hate to still be a Grand Prix driver, except on days like today. It's 0 to 0 stuff. Which tyres are you going to use? Here's the safety car. Now, they have the possibility to start this race behind the safety car. And right now, you've just heard the klaxon go. They're going out. This being Formula One, there's a spare one of these sitting around. They're going to go out and do a lap and check the track. I don't think they'll need it to start the Grand Prix with, but it's certainly going to be treacherous conditions today, no doubt about it. It's going to be a lot of last-minute decisions too, so it could well be a challenge to find too many people today, but let's try and get the inside line from Pat. Oh, yeah, Pat. Now, you're restricted to 4 sets of intermediate tyres, and 3 sets of wets, many of which you used during qualifying. How's that going to affect the race?
Well, it's not going to be too bad because we didn't really give them too much of a hard time in qualifying. It really was pretty wet. We've got some that are better than others, but you probably remember back to Donington. We had that race there and we did literally run out of tyres then, so it can happen. If track dries, the wet tyres wear so quickly, and if it then rains again, you can be in trouble.
Now, I think Michael's got 2 brand new sets of intermediates available to him. Could that be a big advantage?
No, because they're Bridgestones.
Yeah, and their inters are not as good, are they? So you're hoping for exactly this kind of emulsion on the racetrack, yeah? That's going to suit all the Michelin runners?
I think so, yeah. I think it'd be good for us.
All right, so hopefully then you can score some points today and keep your championship hopes alive. Very few of the drivers on the racetrack. Let's have a We'll look for Rubens Barrichello, who's over here, because I want to know what the track is like and see if we can just get some feedback. These drivers, many of the drivers came to the grid on inters, others on the full wets. What's the right tyre to start this race on, Rubens?
I think, honestly, it's quite safe to be on the intermediate, so I don't think anyone would be on the other one.
And what about visibility? Did you get any feel of that down that long straight?
I was quite slow because I was saving fuel and people were going past quite quick, and the visor you would see nothing. So it's going to be the first 3 or 4 laps is going to be quite dramatic on that.
Well, you've got a great grid slot here in third. It must be so frustrating when you want to test the racetrack out and you've got to save gas.
Yeah, it's. I would have loved to get a feel for the brakes, because you don't want to be locking brakes on the first corner or the second one. But it's comes with the experience, so it's all right.
So safety car start, probably not, and intermediates, almost certainly yes.
I think 100%, yeah.
Thanks, Rubens. Right, let's have a look. I think Kimi Räikkönen's down here somewhere. Are you with me, Andy? Let's see if we can get 2 or maybe even 3 words plus VAT out of him today. And he's just putting the lid on. Kimi, intermediate tyres? Intermediates. Who do you want to win the World Championship? Do you care?
I don't care really.
You don't care which one of them it is? Oh, I thought he might have said Ferrari there, as he's moving to that team next year. Let's wander over Jenson Button over here in, well, apparently Fernando Alonso's back by his car, so we're going to head back down the grid, shunting around a little bit today. Hi, Flav. And see if we can just get a quick soundbite from the World Championship leader, because if he's going to, Michael Schumacher's got so much momentum this last few races that if there's any way that he's going to re-seize the advantage, then it's going to be in conditions like this. Fernando, a quick word, just one word for us. How's the track looking? Is it absolutely certain intermediate?
We'll see. I think nobody knows until we are in the track. For sure, some people take intermediate, some people full wet. We'll see.
But if you come up against back markers, is it going to be difficult to go offline?
I don't think so. It's quite okay.
Okay, thanks. Okay, thank you very much for that, Fernando. And looking quite intense. And Fisichella standing over here looking very lonely. Let's just give him a quick bit of company. Fizzy, I know you're getting your head into the Grand Prix, but front row of the grid here, you've got a job to do today.
Well, yeah, you know, we got a good pace, especially in this condition. And we just need to do the best result possible with both cars. So the target is to be first and second. We'll see if it's possible, because it's going to be difficult first part of the race with a wet condition.
So I was saying to the viewers that on a day like this, for a driver, it's 0 to 0 stuff, and it's as big a challenge as you're going to get. I mean, I notice everybody's more intense than normal today. How do you feel about that? Are you a bit nervous of these conditions?
Yeah, obviously you feel nervous because it's a difficult situation. But as I told you, we got a fantastic car, fantastic grip. I was very comfortable yesterday with the wet condition, so it's going to be important just to be careful the first part of the race and be concentrated until the end.
Thanks for your wise words. See you. Okay, well, there's a lot of tension down here on the grid, understandably. Back to you, Steve.
Thank you, Martin. Well done. And a few thoughts from Mark as well. Try to anticipate for us what's going to happen off the start line, especially from the perspective of Alonso and a couple of rows back, Michael Schumacher.
Well, I think, obviously the Renaults are fast starting. We've seen that and we know that. But the bigger issue for me is actually what Rubens Barrichello was alluding to. There's a couple of things there. Visibility is a key one. And believe me, you cannot see anything, Steve. You get behind a few of those cars, it's like getting behind a 40-foot truck on the motorway with your wipers off. Cannot see a thing. It's going to be a big headache for the guys. And cold brakes. They're not going to really have the grip level there to try and get the heat up into brakes. So I think turn 1, turn 2 can be a bigger problem for a couple of the guys there who are going to try and make a dive. I don't know. This is going to be interesting. A lot of pressure on the people there, technical people and the drivers. Do they go for the intermediate? Do they go for the full wet? It could pay off either way. But whatever way it goes, they've got to make sure they make the right choice.
So for Michael Schumacher back in 6th on the grid, I mean, will the temptation be to be super aggressive off the start line, try to get out of traffic, make what early progress he can?
Yeah, he has to try and make some moves early on in this race now, because he knows that he's got to capitalise on those first couple of laps there. Once that gets a bit of a break going there, he's going to have a lot more of trouble on his hands. So yeah, pressure on him to get that delivery done.
Okay, I think we can swiftly hear from Jenson.
Jenson, Jensen, last time we had these kind of lottery conditions, your number came up in Hungary. What are the chances of that happening again?
Well, we have to wait and see. I mean, the conditions are changing all the time. You know, one race is never like the other when it's wet, so we got to see. But it's coming our way, I think. You know, the Renaults are very quick here, and you know, you can't count out Kimi either. So it's going to be a good race, I think.
Is it a different kind of feeling when you're facing a race like this ahead of you?
No, it's just a start. You got to be very careful because you're blind at the start. You can't see anything. So that's the real difficult point in the race. And then you just got to get on with it.
Cheers.
Renault have been quick to suggest this week, Mark, that Fernando Alonso there is the man with a stronger mindset compared to Michael Schumacher. How would you weigh them up in that department?
I think that's a brave comment to make in some ways. You know, Michael Schumacher's won 7 world titles. You don't have a weak mind to get that job done. But Alonso, yeah, he's got youth, he's got the competitiveness there to make sure that he tries to beat Schumacher, and he is strong in that mindset as well. He knows how to handle the psychological game, but don't ever underestimate Michael Schumacher.
That was the other Schumacher we saw, Ralf Schumacher, and Toyota had a difficult day yesterday. Both Toyotas failing to come through the first qualifying session. As Jenson Button makes the final adjustments, is the next couple of hours going to see a significant swing back to Renault in this neck-and-neck battle for both Constructors and Drivers' Championships, or is something special going to come from Jenson and Honda? It's the final countdown to the start of this Chinese Grand Prix when we return.
F1 on ITV, sponsored by Shell V-Power. F1 on ITV, sponsored by Shell V-Power.